Or after dinner, you take your dog or cat or your lover or your kids for a walk. And maybe you go to the bathroom in your work home office one floor up, just so you get up off that thing and have to climb some stairs. Let's move on into detox. And again, at any moment, questions arise. If you feel a little bit shy, you can just go into the chat in the Zoom, and then Alex will bring it forward. Or at any time, I'm totally comfortable about you asking a question. Okay, this is kind of an organic sharing rather than it's solidified. And if you interrupt me, I'm going to be blown off track or something. So we're talking about one of the branches of balanced health, the detoxification. We're talking about a topic that has become very, very popular. If you go on Goop or check out Gwyneth Paltrow or go on just type in detox, there's thousands of different books and different techniques and modalities all over the world, all purporting a product or a book or a technique or a package, a box, or some pills to help you detox. So it also has a lot of confusion. I want to give you our perspective on detoxification, which is very, very baseline. I'll give you some of the things that you can consider doing on a daily level, a weekly level, or an annual level that could support your eliminatory system. So we have, in our whole body and brain, we have several systems. We have the endocrine system, which is your hormones. We have the circulatory system, which is your heart and your blood and all the way down to the capillaries. We have the cardiorespiratory system. We have for your breath. We have the digestive system, the eliminatory system, all of these things, nervous system, all of these things work together. None of them stand alone. So the eliminatory system is made up of our two biggest filtering organs. They're constantly allowing blood to come through them and pull out impurities from metabolizing food and cellular production, impurities from things that we're taking into the body that the body can't deal with, where impurities like free radicals from cell division. Those are wild, erratic electrons from cell division. The eliminatory system, the liver, which just sits over on the bottom of your right pelvis under the back of your right ribs, is an organ that filters out the fat-soluble chemistry from your body and all of your hormones. And then in that organ, it's pulling out the things that the body can't use or that could be damaging or toxic to the body and dumping them into the intestinal tract. And then your intestines, about 22 feet of plumbing, work that toxins and waste, bio waste and chemical waste out through the body with our feces. Our two kidneys that sit just at the lower back, they're filtering all the blood that has water-soluble chemistry and waste products. And it filters that out of the blood, puts them into our bladder, and then we pee them out. So those are the two biggest filtering or eliminatory organs. Then we have the support of the intestines, the lungs, the lymphatic system, which is the collector of bio-waste from our immune system function. It's kind of tubes that follow all through our system, all through our body, like our veins and arteries, that connect to every cell, that take the things that our T cells and our immune system kill, bacteria and viruses, and pull them out, and then also dump them into the intestinal tract through the heart portal. And then we have the skin. The skin is our largest eliminatory organ on the body. It's a semi-permeable membrane. A frog's skin is about 80% permeable. In fact, if you touch it with suntan lotion, that suntan lotion just gets sucked right into the frog. We're about 56% permeable. So anything that touches our skin, roughly 50% of it, goes through the epidermis layers and into the bloodstream. So not only does it take things in, but it also releases. We have sweat glands and sebaceous glands in our skin that allow for the release of toxins and waste materials out of the skin. So things are coming into the donut of our body through ingestion, inhalation, and absorption. Things leave the body through urine, feces, breath, and sweat. That's the in-out flow of taking things in, filtering, and releasing. Does that sound clear to everybody? Okay. So that's the basic system. Now we have to talk about how did this system work originally for us 200,000 years ago as a Homo sapien? Because we lived in a completely different world back then. We did have toxins, and I'm not talking about snake venom or mushrooms that were poisonous, because people learned about those things really fast. Could be smoke from cooking over open fires and inhaling. Women had to inhale a lot of smoke. Toxins in smoke, just like toxins in forest fires. Arsenic, carbon, cadmium, nickel, all in smoke. Not just tobacco, just all smoke. Then there was the bio-waste, because our ancient ancestors, they worked hard from spring through fall, going to collect their calories, hunting and gathering or farming, and they were moving their body, they're outdoors, they were sweating, they were purging, they were drinking, they were eating across the day. They were pretty well supporting the circulatory system and the eliminatory system to release things coming in. And there wasn't a lot of things coming in other than dust and smoke. When they hit winter and they settled down and didn't have refrigeration and had to eat poor quality food, and they stopped moving and they slept more and they became sedentary like us now, their eliminatory system slowed down. Their circulatory system didn't pump the waste products out because they weren't squeezing muscles, scything barley, or hunting down elk. Their digestive eliminatory bowel movements became less. So they reabsorbed poor quality food. They didn't sweat, so they didn't release through their skin. They hardly breathed because they were just coping they didn't have to work, even farmers, just maybe throw a bit of hay out for the cow and pick up some eggs, but not the big work like in spring, summer, and fall. They became more putrefied. All of our ancestors did. And the majority of people in the world died in the winter. They died in the winter because the circulation of their blood, the cleansing of their blood, the movement of their muscles, the deep breathing, and the sweating wasn't happening like it was when they were working hard. So they became putrefied, and that led to inflammation. Inflammation is a swelling and a holding of material in the body that creates disease. All the flus typically were in the winter, and children to old people mostly died in the winter. You go to any older graveyard, you'll see most of the deaths are in the winter. They got smart all over the world, and they realized, by accident or what, I don't know, but they realized if they heated their body up in the winter and they took the temperature of the interior of their body higher, they would kill some of the germs. They kind of knew it just because that's how fevers work. Whenever we would get sick and we have a fever, that's the body's way of killing bacteria and supporting the immune system. So they started to do it artificially. The pre-Roman cultures of Europe, the Celts and Gauls and those people, would go into mineral springs. And then the Romans conquered them and put bathhouses on top of them. The Finns and the Swedes would jump out of a sauna hot box into the fjord. In the Russian banyans, they would set up the big steam house and they would have ice floating in immersion tanks. The onsen baths in Japan, the hammam steam baths in Turkey, the sweat lodges of Native American North Americans, and the Temescal sweat lodges of South Americans. All over the world, people intrinsically wove it into their cultures to heat the body up to a high temperature and then take a hot exterior body and immerse it in cold. This movement of going from having all of our blood on the outside of our body, on our skin when we're trying to cool down, that's the sweating mechanism, from being in a hot immersion or a hot sauna or steam, then plunging into something cold causes all of the blood to rush to the core to protect the temperature of our core organs' blood so it keeps the brain at the right temperature so it doesn't go into hypothermia. That immediate push between the capillaries of our arteries and our veins pushes the circulatory system after it's been sedentary. This is called hydrotherapy. So heating up the body, cold plunging or cold showering to cool it off, and finishing warm for comfort if you want, is a powerful thing we can do daily to increase circulation and move our waste products through the filtering organs. Drinking water, a simple thing like that, 2 quarts a day as your average baseline. More if you're doing more exercise, more if it's hotter out, more if you're on diuretic medications. That water is like an interior car wash. We want to be washing through the body with just straight water, not soda water, not alcohol, not caffeine, not even green tea. No herbal teas count as water. Water is water. The most natural thing you could do if you wanted is throw a slice of lemon or lime into it because they're alkalizing. But water in of itself supports the kidneys by increasing the blood plasma volume in all of our circulatory system. The more water we have, the more volume in our circulatory system. So it moves through the arteries and the veins easier. It supports a higher metabolism. When we're dehydrated, our veins and arteries constrict. And so waste products and nutrients move slower, and we have a lower metabolism. So we want the water to help the kidneys draw all of the toxins that are water soluble out through the urine. And we want the water in our digestive system to work with fiber so that the digestive system moves through those 22 feet of plumbing nice and regularly. We are designed to have a bowel movement within 20 minutes of eating our 3 meals a day. And when we bent and lifted and side barley and picked berries and hauled firewood, it was easy for us to have those bowel movements. But when we're sitting like we are in this current epoch, we're not twisting and turning and helping massage the interior of our body so that everything moves through quickly. If we are not getting a bowel movement a day, we are starting to reabsorb the toxins that the liver's filtering and dumping into the intestines to get out of the body, back through the descending colon, back into the bloodstream. We retoxify ourselves by being dehydrated. If you feel thirsty, you're 2 hours behind hydration. So having a water bottle or having a few of them and fill them up at the beginning of the day with your 2 quarts or 2-ish liters, and then have that there on your desk so that you're working through those 2 or 3 water bottles really helps you as a practice on a daily level support the fluid intake requirements for the eliminatory system to work optimally. Okay, so that's a daily thing that you might want to consider doing. Making sure that we're getting enough fiber in the diet, which is the food that the positive bacteria that lives on in our intestinal tract. And we have 20 million species so far of bacteria that we found in a human gut. Not 20 million bacteria, 20 million species. We actually have more bacteria in our guts than we have cells in our body. We are an ecosystem We are like the earth with ecosystems on it. We have ecosystems in our guts. Now, we want to support the good bacteria by giving it the food that it requires to populate and fill the guts. Because if we don't, the negative bacteria will flourish and take over the ecosystem in that tube. And then we do not digest our food to the nanoparticles we require for absorption, for nutrification. And that food is primarily fiber. And there's two types of fiber. Soluble fiber, which is the bran that's around all beans, legumes, nuts and seeds, and grain. It's that papery, thin kind of covering on seeds and nuts and grains and beans. When it gets into our guts and mixes with water, it's the stuff that the bacteria love to eat. Then we have insoluble fiber, like the skin of an apple. Or maybe you ate a squash and you ate some of the outside of the skin. That harder kind of cellulose, super dense cellulose fiber. That fiber is really important because it becomes like a net in our intestinal tract and helps keep the intestinal tract clean by moving through and scraping out stuff that we don't want to accumulate in there. So we need both kinds of fiber. And they're called the prebiotics now. And then we add probiotics to them, even though there's only about 8 of them that are marketed right now, 8 species out of 20 million species. If we have had to take antibiotics because we got sick or a toothache or something like that, basically we kill all bacteria in the body, including our good and bad bacteria in our guts. So then we have an empty desert of an intestinal ecosystem and we have to repopulate. So then we take probiotics and we build up our fiber again so that we can grow all that bacteria so that it eats up all of the things that come through when we eat and turns it into such tiny particles. It goes through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream and off to nourish the rest of the body. Okay, so that's something on a daily level we can also do, is just add more fiber into our diet. So that can be whole grains, like, your oatmeal, steel cut oatmeal, or it could be barley or wheat, or but a sprouted grain bread, where they take the whole grain, they don't mill it and remove the bran, they take the whole thing and put it in warm water so it sprouts and breaks and wants to turn into a sprout, and then mash it and then bake it, where we get full on the whole benefits of that grain, including the germ that's in the middle. And then our legumes, all the beans and lentils, and our nuts and seeds. Okay? So we've got water, we've got fiber, we're doing that for the intestinal tract and for the flushing. And then we have to exercise. So besides going from someplace hot into something cold, which Alex and I do daily, if you want to check out something, check out Wim Hof. He's the Iceman from the Netherlands who started a trend some probably 15 or plus years ago on immersion in cold and the benefits to the immune system. That's a bit more extreme than what I'm talking about to just help push the circulatory system for us on a daily basis, but explore it. You might want to work with his length of time in cold immersion and his breath work. Both of them proven scientifically. These are practices that he's collected really from around the world, from ancient cultures, proven to improve the immune system. But also for circulation, we need to move our body. And this is the big thing where under the umbrella we call exercise, movement is the most important thing. And that 10,000 steps a day that the American Medical Association has targeted for us is nothing about losing weight. It's nothing about getting stronger. It's nothing about cardiovascular fitness. It's about circulation. Because when we move, we are pumping the muscles and squeezing the veins because they don't have a pump to move all the waste products from cellular metabolization out through the filtering organs and out of the body. So that's where the walking is so important. And walking to get 10,000 steps isn't one action. It's something we want to target daily. It might be after breakfast you take your new puppy for a walk, Eunice. Or after dinner, you take your dog or cat or your lover or your kids for a walk. And maybe you go to the bathroom in your work home office one floor up, just so you get up off that thing and have to climb some stairs and come back down back to your work office. We have to build it into everything we do. Instead of trying to get to the closest parking lot at a restaurant or at the shopping grocery store, we park always at the furthest one. In fact, we do what Europeans have done. We park 6 blocks away from the restaurant, so we walk 6 blocks there and 6 blocks back. The reasons why Europeans are healthier than North Americans is they're not car-centric. They're walking-centric. So exercise, movement is for circulation. Intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting has become a fad. It's taken something that is natural and important for our health, which is to not take blood sugar or glucose to our cells for 12 hours while we sleep. So that during that period, a brand new, just really recently researched thing that's going on right now is called Glymphatic drainage. So we have lymphatic drainage, which is what I talked about, that clear yellow fluid where we have lymph nodes here and under our armpits and in our groins that collect all the bio waste from our immune system. But the glymphatic drainage is for our central nervous system, where our brain and our spine and all of our nerves are releasing toxins just through again metabolization, through cell division. And those toxins, if they're not flushed through the circulatory system properly, through this glymphatic release, we accumulate some of the neurotoxins. One of the neurotoxins, basically, that's the most powerful and current these days is the one that moves us into Alzheimer's. So the most recent research has been looking at what's the difference between an Alzheimer's brain, an aging adult brain, and a child's brain in this glymphatic release of neurotoxins and metabolized waste from the central nervous system. And the people that have the least fluid glymphatic release or cleanse or eliminatory system are accumulating the proteins that cause Alzheimer's. So we have to support that with keeping circulation going. If we're dehydrated all day long because we're not drinking at the desk, if we're not moving, if we're not breathing deeply, if we're not doing hydrotherapy to shock the circulatory system, we're accumulating waste. And most of that waste turns into neurotoxins, toxins of all kinds, the bio waste that basically moves us towards inflammation and disease. Another thing that we can do, of course, is watch what comes in to our ingestion, our inhalation, and our absorption. So that's, again, a daily thing that we watch. What are we eating? The more processed food that we eat, the more chemical compounds that are in it. 3,000 chemical compounds have been approved by the FDA for us to eat. Phenyl glycol, which is antifreeze for your vehicle, is approved in small amounts to keep something moist like a Hostess Twinkie in its wrapper for 100 years. That's approved for us to eat. Aspartame, the sweetener that the industry of soft drinks has chosen to use, took 16 years of lobbying with the FDA to be approved. It's not approved in Europe. It's a carcinogen in Europe. But in North America, after 16 years of lobbying, we're allowed to sell it and consume it. We have to be careful about what we're taking in. So that's a daily kind of fierceness in our choice points in deciding to eat the least complex processed foods and the more natural whole foods. And right there, we just take a whole chemical compound load right out of our system. We have to watch what we're breathing. Fragrances are not even listed in the FDA, and everything has a fragrance. All the things that we wash our clothes with and dry our clothes with, all the things that we clean our air with, hang in our car, all the perfumes, all the scents that are in all of our cosmetics, all of that class of chemistry called fragrance, Europe also sees as highly carcinogenic. And we don't even ask to know what those compounds are in North America. Then there's the parts per million 2.5. That's everything that's a particulate smaller than 2.5 microns that comes into our atmosphere, and the largest depositor of those tiny particles into our atmosphere is the fossil fuel burning. Coal for electricity, fuel for our automobiles and our trucks, and bunker fuel for the big transport ships that are shipping all of our goods back from China so that we can buy them on Amazon. All of that choices that we make in our life is putting this fine particulate into our atmosphere, and it accumulates in cities, especially because there's less air movement. And that air is now responsible, according to Harvard research, which has been taken up by the World Health Organization, to be responsible for 20% of all respiratory deaths worldwide. This is affecting everybody's respiratory system. The micron size of these particles of mercury, arsenic, cadmium, nickel, to name a few, go right through the lungs and right into our cells. It doesn't just cause asthma, it causes death. So on a daily level, we have to be mindful about what we do. You might want an air filter in your home if you're living in a smoggy city. You might want to get out on a weekly basis into the country, into nature, where there's more plant life putting out more oxygen, so your ratio of oxygen to particulate shifts. But we have to be mindful that this is the reality we live in, that our ancestors didn't have to. They didn't have processed food. They didn't have big smog where they lived. They didn't burn fossil fuels like we are. The intermittent fasting that I mentioned earlier does not need to be more than 12 hours. Between your dinner and your breakfast, 12 hours is enough for a process in the body called autophagy, which allows the cell to stop metabolizing glucose or blood sugar and focus on fixing, repairing, and recycling parts within itself so that it lowers cellular inflammation. As long as we're eating late at night, we're having blood sugar keep coming to our cells in the nighttime when this process is supposed to be going on. And so then the process doesn't happen. And this is a big contributor, probably the largest, to the inflammatory response, the buildup of waste products, and the lymphatic system overworking in our bodies. So just on a daily level, again, to do your best to stop any food for 12 hours at night helps the system lower inflammation by taking a break from having to manage blood sugar. So you can start to get that inflammation is bio-waste and biotoxins, and then we have the chemistry that comes in from our environment and our food and what we absorb from cosmetics and hand cleaners and cleaning products in our homes. So again, in those areas, if we can just even adjust a little bit and maybe wear latex gloves when you're using a cleaner, or go for some more natural cleaners from the health food store that don't have some of the toxins in them that we inhale while we're cleaning the toilet bowl or the sink or the stove. In terms of cosmetics, we don't say don't wear cosmetics. We just say maybe consider looking at the company and what's their track record in terms of some of the chemical compounds they use in the cosmetics. Because some of the most toxic things in the world we've invented are part of the cosmetic family. Toluene, nail polish remover, is in the top 5 most deadly chemicals we've ever invented. So just some things to not beat yourself up about, but just consider, what could I tweak? What could I do? Again, if we're active, we're breathing, we're moving our bodies, we're pumping the circulatory system, we're getting massages, maybe on a weekly level. So let's look now what we could do on a weekly level is maybe on a weekly level, you get a massage and you ask your masseuse to also attend to some lymphatic drainage, supporting the release of that bio waste that your immune system has accumulated into the lymph nodes in your body to help flush it out. On a weekly level, you might want to take a dry brush and circularly brush your skin towards your heart, unplugging all the lotions and dead skin cells and revitalizing the sebaceous and sweat glands so that when you go into a sauna or a steam or a minerals thing, once COVID lifts, or if you have access to an infrared sauna in your home or your building and you use those things, your sweating will come on quickly. If you don't sweat easily, dry brushing is the tool to unclog those pores. That can be a weekly activity, just like doing a steam or a sauna or a mineral soak can be a weekly activity, as well as a massage. On a more annual level, you may want to work with a health practitioner like a naturopathic doctor, not just a naturopath. You can get that designation on an online course. A naturopathic doctor goes to school just as long as an allopathic MD. They are a full doctor in naturopathic medicine. These people have connected still to the old practices that I talked about earlier, using herbs, fasting, and different techniques to help do deeper cleanses on the system, maybe once a year, maybe after the winter when we've been more sedentary than usual, when we've built up more accumulation of antioxidants, of free radicals and bio waste and chemical toxins, heavy metals. We recommend that rather than just going to the health food store and pulling off something off the shelf. If you go start doing a liver cleanse or a colon cleanse or a full fasting cleanse without connecting to your MD and making sure that the meds you're on, the hormones you're on, the lifestyle that you have isn't going to be compromised or counterindicatively affected by those deeper cleanses, you could put yourself in jeopardy. So use those on an annual basis, have them be supervised, basically. And there's a variety of them that you've probably all seen on the website, from, Gwyneth Paltrow's 3-day juice cleanse to using various tonics and herbs for your liver cleanse, to doing colonics, to doing chelation. Does anyone know what I mean by the term chelation? Chelation is certain vitamins and compounds that capture heavy metals. So the heavy metals are the cadmium, the barium, the mercury, the lead. These heavier metals actually stress the system out hugely and can actually negatively affect certain organs like our brain. Mercury just goes straight to the brain tissue because our brain is mostly made up of fat. And mercury goes right to the fat. And mercury we're getting from fish, but the fish get it from plankton, and the plankton get it from coal burning. Coal burning all over this planet goes through the atmospheric movement of winds and lands in the soil and into the oceans, and we are accumulating mercury through that process. Mercury is a byproduct from coal burning. And so it's not going away. And that's why when we talk about detoxification, we have to consider what can we do on a daily, weekly, annual basis to keep managing it. It's a management thing that we have to just add into our lives. So chelators are things that we can eat, like cilantro, blue-green algae, like spirulina or chlorella. Or you can go for a deeper release if you've been tested by a naturopathic doctor, and you might have high levels of lead or mercury depending on where you lived in your life. Like in Mexico City has the highest level of lead on the planet. It also has the highest percentage of low IQ development for the children because of it. Because in Mexico, as in most of the non-northern countries in the world, when we stopped putting lead in our gas to take the ping out of the engine, we keep sending it to the other developing nations. We put sulfur in our gas to do that now. And because Mexico City is in a bowl and it hardly has any air movement through it, as its inversion, the lead sits in that bowl and all the children's brains are being affected by it. So a deeper chelator would be going for an intravenous drip with DMT or with vitamin C, super high levels of vitamin C. Vitamin C creates glutathione in the liver, and glutathione supports the liver's function for pulling all of this chemistry out. So we've got food chelators we can put in on a daily, weekly level, like eat more cilantro, eat more parsley, eat more blue-green algae. Even we learned after Hiroshima and Nagasaki that miso was a chelator. It pulled all of the heavy radioactive material out of the Japanese immeasurably. So there's certain foods that help to chelate, and then we can do deeper supported intravenous chelation. And you can get yourself tested for heavy metals. Okay. Is there anything anyone has any questions for? We've got about 7 minutes till we close. I know that's a ton of information, and I see some of you were making notes. Please, again, these whole 6 or so weeks of information we're going to give to you, we're not expecting you to do it all. You can't. We're expecting you to maybe at the end of our sessions together only pick 1 or 2 things that you might attend to in one of those branches of your health that needs a little bit of support. And then once you've habituated that action, you might go down your list to the next thing. Okay, so don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like you're doing it all wrong. We're just trying to give you the information that's current, science research based, so that you can weed out from all the misinformation and fads out there, things that could be valuable to resource yourself. This is what this is all about, is resourcing yourself to be the best you can be. Any questions?
Kirk,
there is one in the chat.
About what is your position on essential oils?
Essential oils can be helpful. I mean, when we go for a walk in nature, and that's why nature's one of the roots to our tree, we are actually breathing in the pheromones, microscopic pheromones that are being emitted by all of the plants around us. We are constantly taking those pheromones in through the olfactory system into the brain, and it triggers neurotransmitters. So it's a part of nature. When we distill it down into super potent essential oils, and we put drops of them in our Epsom salt bath at night to help release uric acid and lactic acid. We can also, through like certain ones like rose and lavender, actually induce a change in our brain waves to get us ready to fall into sleep. And we'll talk about that in the sleep section. So like teas, like herbal teas, they all have qualities. They all sort of push things in our systems. So using them consciously, doing a little research, talking to your naturopathic doctor, or at your health food store, talking to the person in the health section that would know about essential oils, they can be very helpful.
Kirk, we've got another question in the chat. What is the impact of multivitamins on our kidneys and liver?
It's a very good question. And there is a division between sort of the naturopathic medicine world and the allopathic or traditional medicine world in those things. From our perspective, we believe that if you're going to take a multivitamin every day, go for plant-based. Because when we're getting vitamins like, say, vitamin D, and it's a citrate or a chemical compound form, if it doesn't mix with other things, and this is the way our digestive system works, is you're going to learn in our nutrition class that the more we cluster different foods together, they work in synthesis when through the absorption and the absorption into the cellular level better than when we just take them singularly. So take a multivitamin if you want to just support yourself with a meal, and get a plant-based one rather than a chemical compound-based one. I'm not a big vitamin taker, but some people need them. And again, you can get tested with a naturopathic doctor to see where your vitamins and minerals are. And if you're low in certain ones, it's worth adjusting your diet and supplementing a little bit. But again, work with professionals.
Kirk, with hydrotherapy, is a sauna still helpful without the cold plunge at the end?
It's not helpful for the circulatory system. It's not going to give that push that we need. We need that little push to dislodge waste products in our capillaries of our system. The other benefit of that hydrotherapy is that we only have the one pump, and it's working so hard as we age, it's just getting more and more tired, trying to push blood all the way out to the tiniest capillaries to the cells. But actually, around each capillary is a muscle, a micro muscle that is temperature activated, especially on our skin. And if we do that hot-cold push, you don't have to finish cold and be uncomfortable. You can actually put it back to warm or hot after you finish. These muscles get activated and they start pumping the blood for us. So it's not just up to the heart. We're incorporating more muscles and more support, which takes the pressure off the heart, having to do all the pushing of the arterial blood. So yes, a sauna, steam, mineral soak, or even your Epsom salt bath soak are really beneficial for purging out through the sweat glands, but they won't push the circulatory system like going from hot to cold and then finishing warm or hot. Any other questions?
Yeah. What about coffee or caffeine as the toxin? Ingesting it, does that tax the whole system?
Coffee and all caffeines, chocolate, green tea, all the sports drinks and everything, that isn't so much of a toxin. Caffeine, though, for about a third of the population, pushes cortisol, which is our stress hormone, up. Okay, and once the stress hormone goes up and stays up on a constant basis, it shuts down our immune system and pushes inflammation into our body. So we don't want to really just rely on caffeine to have our mind stay focused and sharp. We'll talk about other ways we can do that in some of our other seminars together. The one thing that we would ask you to consider, which is more difficult for the body, is alcohol. Alcohol, no matter what kind it is, the most delicious Bordeaux from 1958 is still ethanol. And ethanol has to be filtered by the liver. And in the process of filtering it, it has to convert it into acetate, which is a vinegar, so that it doesn't poison the brain cells. If we're constantly drinking alcohol all the time, we're overworking the liver. And so it has about 250 functions. It's one of the most complex organs in the body. It'll always deal with poisons first and stop doing other things. So our recommendation is, if you're going to have a little glass of something, have it early, like happy hour, or at latest with dinner, and then stop, so that your liver doesn't heat up in the night during your sleep and disrupt your sleep, your depth of sleep, while it's trying to filter the alcohol out of your bloodstream. So we're not against anything. We're just wanting to give you the recommendations about considering the best time and the amount and frequency of things, so that it doesn't overload our system and then cause more jeopardy.
So I think we're at time, but I think it's a similar theme to last week. This is a ton of information, and it can feel like this gap between where you are today and where you feel like you need to be is insurmountable and massive. So Kirk, could you leave the team here with some digestible takeaways?
Well, I tried to mention what you might want to consider daily and weekly and annually. I would put the annual one aside. I would even put the weekly one aside for now, and just pick one of your list from the daily. And it might be as simple, and it's probably the most powerful, as drinking enough water. Drinking enough water supports the eliminatory system, both the bowels and the kidneys, so that they can keep doing their work. We really just want to support them to do what they're designed to do. So even if you just targeted 2 quarts or 2 liters of water a day, a bit more if you're going to be more doing a workout class or something like that, or sweating more, or in summer when you're outdoors. But if you can start to fill water bottles in the morning up to that amount, put them on your desk, and then just target having them through the day. Don't drink too much at the end of the day. It'll disrupt your sleep with bio breaks at night. So drink the majority of your liquids before dinner and taper off in the evening. And you'll support the kidneys and the liver. So it doesn't have to be a lot. And then you can play around with, cold showers if you like, or once COVID's off, go for the lymphatic drainage massage, or getting to a gym or a day spa where you can get a good steam or sauna once a week. And you get to really get a good sweat. So simple things. And then on the don't do list, do your best to eat as much whole food rather than processed food as possible. And then you're just not taking in more than you want to take in. Is that helpful?
Kirk, we have one last question.
Sure.
I think line off here. What's your opinion about replacing sugar with stevia?
There's a lot of great new substitutes for sugar that still give us a little bit of a feel-good benefit with something sweet at the end of the day, or a reward or something. And stevia, I find it's a bit mineral tasting, but lots of people like the flavor. Again, do you need to put it in every single tea that you have throughout the day? The frequency that we use a sweetener like that just keeps us addicted to using the tongue as a way to feel good, releasing those neurotransmitters in the brain. So just noticing how much sweetness do we need in our life, and when do we need it? What are we thinking or feeling when we're attracted to wanting it? There's xylitol, Xylitol, is a birch sap sugar that does not react in the same way as sucrose, glucose, fructose, maltose, dextrose, all of those other sugars. And it's being used you can find it in health food stores, in paleo chocolate bars and things like that, which give you a little something once in a while. So we're not against sugar. It's just about limiting it so that it's not running you. It's super highly addictive.